Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to LEGO DC Supervillains. So it's important to point out that I've turned up the brightness on the video settings from 50 to 75%. I guess I really don't need to show you that because we're in this dark swamp area. We are doing the open world now section of Gotham, which also will be very dark. I suppose it is somewhat possible that it will be really blown out if we go back to Metropolis where it isn't so dark. And we've unlocked significant portions here of the characters and vehicles. So theoretically we could be done with the overworld. Pretty quickly if in this episode, not really that quickly. But then there's a lot of challenges and things still. Yeah, once you get into like Metropolis, it's pretty blown out as far as the brightness goes, but it's not terrible. It just kind of makes it all feel a little bit more cartoony, and the whites are too white and the blacks are too gray as far as colors and the color dynamic range. Alright. Since we're starting this way, let's just fly down to Gotham City, and we have the guy with the world on his back. Which guy was that? Prometheus or no. I think it was a different guy.
Nothing my power. But I shall take this item.
And that unlocks Bane. Which arguably Bane was like a really big character, both because of early Batman movies and for the fact that he was really just the main bad guy against Batman for a very long time, comic book wise. In 1993 here, Batman Vengeance of Bane, and then that whole arc of, I would say, was probably at least 20 issues, so over a year, which would 12 issues would be a year, so close probably to like 2 years. At the end of that arc, Bane broke Batman's back, which led to Batman being unable to be Batman for a fairly long time in comic. Well, not that long, but a decent amount of time in comic book terms. And eventually they he had some kind of suit that allowed him to walk and maneuver while wearing the bat suit, and I think eventually he just got healed. And like all things in comics and DC, they rebooted at some point, and so canonically I'm not sure if Batman ever has had his back broken now canonically, but then if you get into that line of thinking, then there's very little that you can be certain that actually has occurred in the rebooted Batman universe. Generally, I think they will imply that it did happen. And that is kind of the problem with reboots in comics too, is that you have these iconic things that people are going to remember and expect to have still happened, such as Barbara Gordon getting shot and turning into Oracle and being wheelchair bound, Jason Todd being beaten to death or nearly to death by the Joker with a crowbar, Bane breaking Batman's back, and so in a reboot, you at some point then have to introduce Bane and tell the exact same story as has been told before. But ideally, I would imagine you'd want to go over it in a more abridged format and just tell a shorter story. So this is the Botanical Gardens, and there is just nothing in here to do. Like, you can't go into botanical gardens, and you can't do any kind of open world mission, or it was just Bane, which Bane's connection to poison ivy I think is probably only really made in the movie, the Batman movie. I don't think Bane really has any connection to poison ivy in any of the comics. So we have a Lego statue here with the Lady Justice, and then your monorail. Right, we have an Owlman, I'll protect you. And we'll just put an incredibly dark picture there instead. Which, yeah, it means nothing. And I don't know if it's really even worth repeating, but clearly this Gotham, were it in Lego Batman 2, would be much more of an experience, because in Lego Batman 2 you wouldn't be able to fly around and just ignore a significant portion of the...
Are we just stuck here? Is it a test maybe? See if you can find a way in.
Interesting. It doesn't look like that's the way in.
How do we get up here?
It doesn't matter how we got up here. What matters is how we get inside. You got a plan? Yeah.
So we'll get these two guys to pull this. And then almost every single time we have one of these challenges with the goons don't pathfind on the first try. And so now we're going to blow up the wall on the other side.
Look, way in. Let's find the others.
Spread out.
Now you have the Wayne family again. I assume that's the Wayne family. Even though I don't think this is Wayne Enterprises building, we'll have to go and check. Ideally, I would like to see a room like this have more going for it. We have to wait to get the beep prompt.
Can I help you? There it is.
190218. And you'd think you would just put in the code at that point with this Lego combination dial. Let's see, 190218 feels like that should be like the date his parents died or the day Bruce Wayne was born, but it doesn't really make any sense. 2019 is like too early, 2018 is too early, and you wouldn't have the year as 02 as far as 2002. I mean, 2019, 2018 might be the day of the Bruce Wayne's parents dying, but then that would make Bruce Wayne fairly young.
Nothing escapes my arrows.
Oh, so we are just putting in the code. 1, and we're spinning it. This is a bad mistake as far as the system. I think kids would struggle with this. and just not really understand the idea. And it seems like that was programmed very specifically so it would work pretty much no matter what you did, as long as you just went left, right enough that you couldn't overshoot it and undo the dials being in the right place. I guess that is the Wayne Enterprise building. Interesting. Alright. When you compare, say, Arkham City to this, Arkham City is not particularly much bigger than Gotham is, or even the combined entire overworld, even with Apocalypse. In fact, Arkham City might even be, in square footage, smaller than what's in this game. But they just do a much better job, I think, of having Riddler clues in Arkham City. That being said, I wasn't particularly even happy with the amount of content in Arkham City, and you still had a character in Batman, since that was the only character you played in Arkham City, who could effectively glide, if not fly, around everywhere. And so you did fairly quickly develop enough skills and enough reasons to not put foot on the ground in a lot of Arkham City. It's funny, it kind of feels like the brightness being turned up in the menu has made even the photographs brighter. Like, even more bright than they would just by default by turning up the brightness. Right. There's a lot of people having general conversations, and then there's a lot of buildings that feel like somebody would have made this for some reason. That feels almost Lego in the feline comb there. Is this supposed to be Catwoman in some way? A reference to Catwoman?
Yes. Then I
I guess that is one thing about like criminal activity in general, is that you generally do need to have some kind of job to hide your secret identity. Like, you're just not gonna be Catwoman non-stop, although in the DC universe maybe that's exactly what you do. But if you wanted to launder and clean money, you would need a job to say, hey, I earned this from the job, and that's where I'm getting my income from. This is a fairly large area, and I wasn't really expecting there to be a potential catacombs or underground section of Gotham.
My powers are always growing.
So we break one wall, then we break another wall. If there's another wall behind this, then this is something really secret. So it's a gold brick and somebody with a trophy, and somebody with some kryptonite, and a gold ring walled up in the wall. Which I have no clue as far as what that might be a reference to. Yeah. Here we have Harry's hair layer and just a general pizzeria. And it's cool that you have these like flat non-Lego art styles, but then you really are running into very generic, probably pre-made walls and doors and textures. Particularly, I think Catwoman might have a job in the DC universe because you do see her often trying not to be just completely evil, whereas a more complete bad guy would probably just assuade any normal lifestyle or hiding their identity. I doubt the Joker, for instance, would have a secret life where he's working a regular part-time job to launder his money. Joker doesn't care about money. You're going to constantly run into this problem though. If you're trying to do something and you have demolition mode on. Or you might bump into somebody and get the police after you, and by bumping into somebody and getting the police after you, then they're no longer
Then I destroy her precious plan.
You're no longer going to easily be able to accomplish your goals.
You don't seem very busy. Care to join me in a spot of fun? I plan to play poison ivy. I wish to destroy her favorite plant to show her who's boss around here. Come. Let us Ivy's greenhouse.
So, I guess we'll have an excuse to go to Ivy's greenhouse. Meanwhile, I guess we're also looking for posters to deface. And this is another quest that might give you an excuse as to staying on the ground. He's doing a count from Sesame Street reference. You can see how those goons just teleported in using the same teleportation animation that we use when we swap in a character. So that implies either boom tube or slideways technology, but the game is not really explaining what it is. In other Lego games, they would clearly either just stand there where they would have been spawned in at the beginning of the instance, or they would come around from a corner that you don't see.
That's it. Now you must destroy the flower.
You can see Vixen just wants to...
The big gun. She must really like flower.
Mushroom characters, those are new. Is this an infinite thing, or are we just supposed to break the flower? Doesn't really seem like we can hit the flower. But this also seems like a lot of goons compared to every other fight.
Fantastic. That which I Count Vertigo, the center of the storm ocean, am not to be trifled with.
Definitely feels like if I can lock onto something, I should be able to destroy it in one hit.
Now then.
Not have to switch to the long-term laser attacks. Longer turns.
Perhaps this has hidden magical properties.
As far as Count Vertigo is concerned, where is he from? When and where? First debuted in World's Finest 251, 1978, current version, Green Arrow, number 22, 2013. He was born into the Vlatavian royal family. Before they were overthrown, the younger Warner Zidal ended up as a secret test experiment, gaining the power to disorient the minds of any of his enemies. Having now reclaimed his birthright, Count Vertigo is one of Green Arrow's most powerful opponents. And I guess he causes vertigo. Although, doesn't seem like he can really fly. Let's go do this next challenge. The arrows you can see aren't very helpful in that they do just kind of point in generic directions, and so they will only be useful when there's only a 2 or 3 left in the whole world.
They won't serve us because they say clowns only cause trouble. That's blatant clown discrimination. Disclownmination. I just saw one of those fancy critics heading inside. I say now's a good time to cause a little trouble.
Okay. So what am I supposed to just do?
Welcome. Please take a seat wherever you like and prepare for the gastronomical delight of Gotham.
This is a fairly nicely designed diner, but I'm not sure the chairs really are made out of Legos. You have a burger. Tables could have been made out of Legos. Counter could have been made out of Legos. This table and these chairs are made out of Legos. And you're not just supposed to create a fight. That's not the whole idea. Even though that could have just been the whole idea, is just go start a brawl in places.
What? Oh no! Oh, my food is ruined. What happened?
Faulty equipment? I'll have to make a note of this.
That's why you ought to stay fresh, chef.
And then I assume there's another thing here we're supposed to do to turn off the fans. And I guess I cut off the fans and the music. Nope, didn't cut off the music.
That's about to be in hot water. Oh no! What happened to the fans?
It's getting awfully hot in here. Do you even have a functioning air conditioner?
So, yeah, Lego fans are cool. But it's a little weird that when you see something cool looking like the Lego fans, they aren't just destroyable and that they're interactable. It kind of feels like
That's going to just
there should be 2 different art styles for things that you can interact with versus things that you can break. Instead of
These flavors are
Lego
disgusting.
being
What have you done to this food?
breakable or interactive
my
with.
signature dish. It is delicious. What could be so? My review. A laughable 1 star. Good work, buddy. Here's your tip for helping me out. Get your round.
This is another one of these lesser minions where his mouth flaps really are not lining up. I think. I don't know. It felt like that was the case. I wasn't paying enough attention. Alright. Interesting. Seems like there's going to be yet another quest to talk to people and do something, but I bet it's not this guy. I bet it's somebody else somewhere nearby. If the real world art style was the stuff you could break, and behind it were generic textures of Lego, that might not be a terrible idea. But then breaking non-Lego things and getting Lego studs as a currency doesn't make a lot of sense. And really, the right solution would be to have everything in Lego, everything you could possibly make in Lego, instead of this compromised experience where very little is in Lego. Of course, the trend as far as Lego properties is to have less and less actually built or have anything to do with Lego, and just make it more of a minifig game. Ah. So I did have to just leave the area to get to this quest. This is Condiment King, I assume.
Grand opening my new restaurant with condiments to the chef. But you would not believe the nerve of the critics who showed up and might I add, ate for free. Technically, I've given up my life of crime. But this is a matter of honor. Those snooty reviewers need to know that when you play with hot sauce, you get burned. Let's put the squeeze on these petty pundits. You know, like how you squeeze plastic bottle, the condiment flow going, like that.
Condiment King is another one of the DC joke characters.
Well, the decor of this nothing to be scoffed at, but the presto frittata was a little too pesto and not enough frittata.
I think you'll find in my Italian cuisine is the authentic taste of the hidden valleys of the Dolomite.
Am I supposed to just beat up these guys? I mean, that's fine as far as a DC supervillain. Was this even a restaurant? It's not even a restaurant. In here, it's just a little alcove. That's particularly dark, which I think does highlight how these photos are affected by lighting in the game when they really shouldn't be. That's a little awkward, certainly, that you're beating up just food critics.
Is an insult to food. The best thing to do would be to how you say close it down.
Hey, why don't you close that mouth?
We gave it 1 out of 10 at the Gazette. What did you give it at Plant?
A phone call to the health inspector.
Hey, now I have two problems to deal with. You selfish freeloaders.
So the big question to ask here certainly is, why are you not causing the police to chase after you for beating up on all these civilians? This would make a lot more sense if this was a way of pushing you to embrace the GTA aspect of getting police badges or stars in GTA. But yeah, seemingly I can bump into random strangers and completely beat them up, and the police don't care. And yet the police do care if you break certain trash cans or mailboxes
I really like
or steal a car.
Quirky. The service left something to be desired, though. And they wouldn't even accept my tip.
I pay my staff a living wage. Hack.
I kind of agree with him on that side. I could go into a long rant about tipping culture, but I can just say historically in the United States, tipping was just considered an idea of bribing people on top to do their job right, and was totally not a thing that people in America used to do in previous decades, and it has since been pushed heavily into the minds of people to allow waiters to be underpaid by restaurants management and restaurant owners below minimum wage, really. Like most of waiters, wait staff in the United States get paid up to minimum wage, including tips. So you get more than minimum wage per hour if you get tips, but if you get no tips at all in that hour, you get $7.25 or whatever minimum wage happens to be in that state, in that city, in that area. Meanwhile, they've, particularly in the last year or two, gotten extremely aggressive about having tip prompts show up on point of sale systems when you pay with a credit card, which most people do, with ridiculously high default tip percentages of 30-40%, and often the calculated tip that they tell you is not even accurate to number. It's just basically wrong in its math. So they try to make it as awkward as possible to say no tip. Meanwhile, the people going to most restaurants still have not gotten a raise in a decade or more, so it's not like they can afford to subsidize underpaying other workers.
Thank you. I accept this on behalf of Batman's everywhere.
Right, so I'll just leave the tipping rant at that point. Condiment King as a character first appeared in Birds of Prey in 2002, so he wasn't even a first comic appearance. I feel like he was a Batman animated series joke character, once again being now attributed to a comic appearance in Birds of Prey 37. He's one of Batgirl's earliest foes. This small-time criminal is out to prove he's no flavor of the month bad guy. Using his special condiment guns, this sauce-obsessed swindler is ready to rob banks and ruin dinner jackets, as there's no one who can put a stop to his seasoning-centric schemes. His other alias is Mitchell Mayo. And then these known aliases also don't particularly tell you whether the other known alias is a real name or if it's just another alias he sometimes uses. He's got a ketchup reticle, ketchup and mustard.
Maybe I should call the whole thing.
I also have to say it's very weird though for a kid game to make a comment on tipping culture. Like the idea of tipping, of being generous and kind, is is a kind of good idea to try and encourage in the kids, instead of encouraging kids to go on more adult thought out rants about how tipping culture is really a scheme to manipulate people emotionally into subsidizing a bad system. Amusement Mile. That's a nice picture, but so I really don't think that's probably the best thing to be in the game. And here in this case, if you want to take this picture, you have to zoom in because you can't be on the ground to take a picture. You have to be on the ground to take a picture. So here we have girl with the pearl earring, Lego Mona Lisa. Feels like the Lego Mona Lisa should have been in more areas. And then a statue. And then just I wouldn't recognize that painting if there's something special about it. So it's just a guy here that I don't really recognize on the phone.
This is your only warning. The reverse flash. Mere child of someone with my far talents.
Seems like this would break this, but it's not. So let's try this guy and see if maybe he has a sonic arrow. So now he's just crying. And that's just another great example of there being too many abilities. It really should have been clear cut. Yes, it is, I guess, also fair to say kids should be taught to spot societal scams. How society itself is built on systems, and some of these systems are designed to keep the rich and the lower classes and middle classes, of which there really isn't much of a middle class in the United States. There's just a lot of super hyper rich people and people who think they're middle class that are actually just upper lower class. But those are all very complicated, jaded, somewhat jaded because of the reality of the situation perspectives, and the Lego game really should just not touch upon that. Lego games should be bright and colorful and live in a idealized world, just in the same way as comics should probably be, or at least comics for kids should be bright and colorful. It should be a lot of Teen Titans Go visuals and mentality, not Batman stories of modern times, which are fairly dark. Or Batman Black Label in particular might be a good example of very mature ideas.
Troy. Yeah, right.
Wait, did we just get a phone call? My review scores are trending upwards thanks to your help. Okay. There's still a lot of people complaining that we don't get the right to their favorite condiment. That we didn't get the rights to their favorite condiment, though. And nobody really likes mango pickles anyways. It's all just hype. Mango pickles. I would say there is just a lack of appropriate tone for this game, it feels like. That the visuals are too dark in Gotham. But when you look at the colorful Joker from character here, and the bright colorful minifigs, and even the cars, it just doesn't really match the non-Lego aspects that it should match.
As if dragging my arse all the way from Star City wasn't hard enough. The archery turned up to my house party late. Do they have no etiquette? On the invite, may have told them to turn after dark. But since moving to Gotham, I don't think I've even seen the sun. Could you round up my archery brethren? You really
So this
will?
seems like this is just so we're just collecting a bunch of archery people. And it just doesn't seem like we're gonna ever run out of gold bricks to do all of these things. We might run into a surprise when we run into the last statue, because it seems like it's getting more expensive with each statue. So we may need like all the gold bricks otherwise, or a large amount of gold bricks. And so we've unlocked a new character, and this should be Starfire from Teen Titans.
I must be on my way.
Hey, you. You look like the capable sort. Help me deal with security, will you? Come on. How long does it take to bypass security? Definitely be in there. Amateurs.
This guy wants some other stuff. Yeah, I kind of just have to assume they couldn't ever get the rights to something like Teen Titans Go, but it definitely would have made sense instead of doing DC Supervillains, which clearly that was just a decision that was made because DC superheroes already existed, and so they just wanted parody. When it would have made a lot more sense to simply go with the Young Justice type characters. And you could almost tell a very similar story. There isn't much of a story here in the first place, but if instead of the Justice League being trapped by Justice Syndicate,
She would have the tools. I don't suppose you could.
Here we go. Time to try
you have the exact same story, except for it's just that the... Is there any kind of combination to any of this that I have to do? So you have to do this in a certain order.
Muttering codes to herself. Yellow, blue, orange. I forget the last. You get the idea.
Okay. He just tells you the code if you don't brute force it fast enough. But yeah, instead of the playing as the DC supervillains if you just played as all the kid characters or even second tier heroes. That would have been more
later days, buddy.
kid friendly, I think.
Oh yeah, got it. Another job, well done. Half
So, oh, there's a code too. I didn't even see it. It's totally in the wrong place. Why not put it right at the back of the wall, or maybe even over here would have a higher chance of seeing it. Basically, you can't break it.
And then I told him that's no parody.
Yeah, the vast majority of parents would see Lego game and only pay attention to that and say this is fine for kids. And I'm not saying this game really is inappropriate for kids, but it could have been better targeted if it stayed with the heroes. Like, I don't think even in the renaissance of fandom amongst Marvel and to a lesser extent DC amongst kids, I don't think there's a lot of kids that like the villains that much. They may like a couple of the anti-heroes. Batman, I guess, is very popular, and he's sort of an anti-hero character.
I don't feel so good. And then I told him that's no parademon. That's my mother-in-law. Sure, I can make Roy's party. I'll always leave early for that cutie.
Alright, let's fly next to the next area. Les Maisons de Chat, a cat cafe.
Nothing like my power. But I shall take this item.
So you have a whole cat cafe, which, remember, one character wanted to make a cat cafe, the dancer in Smallville, and now we've found a cat cafe, and we've unlocked one of the Red Lantern characters, Dexstar, powered by Rage, number 2 of the Red Lanterns. Which an irate, angry cat probably is a great embodiment of rage. So forced that you have to take a picture there. We're really not.
On the menu. On second thoughts, hold the row.
The row.
But Roy told me not to come until it's dark. If the party's already started without me, then you have been misinformed. No party starts until I walk in. Now.
There you have, in Chinatown, a lot of live seafood and spiders and meat, which may be accurate or may not be. Feels a little stereotypical. I mean, there really is no other section in Gotham that we've seen so far that implies there's any other kind of cultural central section or segregated section. There definitely is a conversation to have, again, more of a mature conversation than you'd have in a Lego game around why segregation is wrong, even if it is a self-segregation that is being done mostly amongst people's own culture. Ideally, if you were building a city, places where you could go to buy Chinese food would be very nicely in kind of a mall cafeteria type area where there's several different restaurants of several different types of food next to each other. As far as other things that are associated with Chinatown, like herbal medicine, probably shouldn't be legal, just because it's promising something that has failed to scientifically been proven. And then there's really nothing else other than just the like architecture design. Fabrics, silks, linens, a fabric district where you would go to buy different types of clothes would be better if it was integrated. But the best part of the idea of a Chinatown, I think, is mostly just to have Chinese people who don't want to learn how to speak English living with other Chinese people who don't want to learn how to adopt to any other cultures. In general, if you look around in an area and everybody looks like you, there's probably some reason, even if it was some segregation that was begun decades earlier.
What do you mean you can't drive? I mean I can't drive. I can't deal with this right now.
And clearly there's just not a lot to say. They made a Chinatown in Lego City too, so it's not just this game. And as it is, the main goal of a Lego game is to figure out ways to make Lego items. A Chinatown is a good excuse to do that. This is just an empty store. Right next to it, you have Gotham Towers West. Let's see. Like, visually, though, Gotham should probably be a lot more consistent. To the point that the Chinatown doesn't even exist. There's also, in some of the side Batman Gotham books, there is a whole like college section, a richer section, versus the dark brooding section that you see in Batman comics. And that's where they try to introduce Batgirl, or reintroduce Batgirl in a recent comic by having her be in Gotham, but be in a college in Gotham where it's bright and colorful, and it isn't just a dark and gloomy, rainy section. And I almost certainly have complained about games having wetter sections where it starts to rain and that just obscures your view. But I probably should take back some of that complaining compared to this, because this is by far worse, where it is just always dark, even if there is a day-night cycle, which I don't think there really is. I think it's just when you're in Gotham, it's a cloudy day, and when you're anywhere else, it's a sunny day. and then it's always running in Gotham.
Oh, hello. Oh, hello. Arsenal's throwing a party? They are always on point. Archery jokes, always hitting their
So these are archery people, but they don't seem like they're special archery people. They just seem like they're general random civilians with archery Lego sets.
Six green arrow unannounced. Some folks can't hint.
Arsenal just being a side character for Green Arrow.
You can count Arsenal, bring the arsenal. Anyway, I should stop harping on and get back to partying. You can see yourself out, right?
Shooting. But this has hidden magical property.
I would say it does seem, I'm not a huge fan and haven't followed the Green Lantern stories, but it does seem like Green Lantern in particular is kind of a jerk character, so his circle of friends and people he might fight with tend not to really just hang around as much as, say, Superboy or Robin hangs around Batman. Robin is a better example there. Apparently Arsenal was really originally known as Speedy Roy Harper. He became the Green Arrow's teenage sidekick back when they were giving a teenage sidekick to every character, and most trusted ally in fighting crime. Later adopting the name Arsenal, Roy became a member of the Teen Titans as a skilled engineer with advanced archery training thanks to his former mentor. He showed up first in More Fun Comics 1941. You can tell some of these comics also just had very generic names because they were telling a lot of different stories in each issue with different characters, and they definitely got away from that idea. Noticeably on TV, you don't have a TV show that is just called More Fun TV, and every week there's a completely different cast of characters and a completely different narrative being told.
Places today.
It is very noticeable and worth pointing out that as they started to realize that they were losing younger audiences in comics, the only idea they could think of doing was to add teenage sidekicks instead of just adding new characters that happen to be younger, because they had to integrate effectively the already existing adult characters who were adults because the writers were adults, and effectively almost every superhero is a Mary Sue character, which that phrase just means the writer self-inserts themselves a lot of times. Well, Mary Sue doesn't have to be a self-insert, but often is. But the writer makes the character, a Mary Sue character, perfect with no flaws, and it's just completely unbelievable as a character because of that. This is too complicated of a puzzle for its own good.
I have no idea. Normally that strange fellow from 7 meters with the pipes near the drinking fountain. That usually gets me flowing again.
So, I don't know if there's something, this is a reference to something, or if this is just a generic, we had a secret secret area.
They'll be so pleased when they find out.
I'll be complaining to the landlord this one.
I always thought I could hear voices in the walls.
Okay, moving on. I've lost my train of thought as far as what I was talking about at this point. It does seem like there's just a distinctively large amount of characters in Gotham. Oh yeah. So yeah, comic book writers even now basically consider the superheroes to be extensions of their own persons and are very often Mary Sue characters. Let's see, Clock King. When did Clock King show up? World's Finest number 111, 1960.
Clock King.
But they have effectively, comics, DC and Marvel in particular, painted themselves in a corner where they can neither create new characters because nobody has any interest in the new characters because it's so oversaturated with old characters that the existing fandom already loves, and they can't make the characters younger or reboot enough to get like new come on. Maybe we should switch to Kite Man and see if maybe Kite Man's better. Let's try this again. Kite Man might be the character to use. See, the pull-up part is really hard. So ideally, it does really seem like your goal should be to hit the top, if at all possible. Let's just see if we can break this bow tie, because we know that's another misdemeanor. This does just feel like this is going to be a very difficult one. So I pressed A that time, and then it definitely just doesn't want to work. And this is definitely a situation where I think you want to gain as much momentum and speed and do as few micro movements as possible. These kinds of races are about the only justification for the way this world is designed. Problem now. I missed that one, so unless I could switch to a flying character. And then fly. Which apparently I can do. Which doesn't that mean I could just also switch to a speedster at any point. So it seems like you're fairly open to cheat if necessary. I feel like I already destroyed one of these. So there's multiple in these alcoves. Unless that was just a repeat. Moving on. I may have had some complaints around Lego Marvel superheroes when you had Peter Parker in these unique instances running from one part of New York to another before you got back into a story level, and how it felt kind of odd. It feels like that idea probably should be readdressed, and it should just be another, there should be another attempt. Because had I been more forced into collecting collectibles in between the story levels, I would have probably never done it, but it would have been a better experience had I engaged in that way. Like, ideally, I think what you probably needed to do is be told that you need a certain number of gold bricks to start every level.
Whoa, looks pretty nice. I heard Wayne and other stuff around here.
We're up to 4 billion.
Okay, now you just silly dog. Fancy goggles? Yeah, right.
Plastic Man. Plastic Man always feels like a character that should be a bigger character, but doesn't seem like it really is. Yeah, this is just a different instance of the story level.
I will leave this for lesser to take care of.
We once again have a situation here where I really don't know, like, what I'm supposed to be doing. So, like, breaking that thing did not in any way make sense that it would bring up a bunch of crates. It did put a little Lego red thing there so that you can jump from one ledge to the other. So we're building 4 statues, I guess. And we see the 4 pictures. Okay, so this might be 4 generations. Notice how slow the stud was spinning in that cutscene. The frame rate just drops ridiculously low when the camera takes over. Which almost certainly that points out that there's some very old system as far as the cutscenes and all of that, and that might explain why we don't see that many of the in-game, in-engine cutscenes happening in this game, and instead we see a significant amount of pre-rendered cutscenes as videos. This engine that they're using is obviously should have been abandoned 5-6 games earlier than it was for something like the Unreal Engine or even the Unity engine.
Like in one of those spy movies?
And that is definitely an example of there just being far too much of a tight development cycle around LEGO games, so they could never take a break until they finally were forced to and move to the Unreal Engine.
Look at that. I was right. Woohoo!
And I still kind of expect that there's probably a lot of work to do to make LEGO games in Unreal Engine. So, am I supposed to? Interesting, it teleported me.
Interesting painting. Kind of modern.
Trust Wade. Picture of his statues from the lobby. Pathetic.
Hey, I wonder. You reckon
So sunglasses guy's blue.
things? You know, with ace behind it?
Probably needs to be purple here. Then phone is yellow. And then this one should be red. Yep.
Now that is sweet.
You just walk out of the door. Interesting though that that wasn't a yellow entrance area. There's no glowing yellow around that. So it's like two different people thinking two different ways. One in which you would take an elevator to get into some areas, and one in which you would always enter a yellow section. Let's see.
Hero?
I think mostly for this game, if everything was just shorter, if there was no overworld, there would be less to complain about as far as it being empty or it being grindy, which you are in this catch-22 where when I am engaging with this open world for the first time, I find it very grindy and kind of pointless, and I also feel like there should be a lot more to do. Maybe if it was the same amount of interactions and activity, but it happened to just be twice the quality, I could find a nice middle ground there. So we're gonna do a little crane game, which this definitely feels like this is something that should have been in the main game, because it's an interesting gimmick, to say the least. And as soon as I got anywhere close to it, it dropped a crate and jumped to a cutscene. There's a bunch of teddy bears. And that was that gold brick. I've also said in the past though that very quick gold bricks would be kind of more preferable in a lot of cases, so I really am feeling a little bit of both. Perhaps this gold brick should have just been a chest that you blow up and then you move on. Although I would have wanted to see the crane game somewhere. Right. In this one we have to use the bicycle, I believe. It's somewhat fortunate that you only have to do that once. And I assume the speedster wouldn't really speed this up. This definitely feels more like a jump raise. And they're giving you kind of a massive amount of boost. A lot of things to get stuck on though, a lot of people to run into. Well, a lot of ways to get the police upset at you. Kind of barely gonna make that.
This has hidden magical properties.
It seems like the police aren't even gonna chase after you until after the race is done.
This island is good for fishing.
Interesting. There's a quest underground. We have a pigeon purring. Let's go and do this quest next.
I can't drive.
Where are you? My beloved disappeared, and I don't know where she's gone. I can see that she's in trouble, but I can't see clearly enough to know where she is. Can you help me find her? My first guess would be that place that sells seafood in Chinatown. She always loves fish so much.
That lexigram mouth is really taking off.
I feel like more of these missions would have been good. A couple more, 10, 20 at most. That being said, it's weird to potentially assist people when you're playing as the villains.
You're genius. Okay. So the arrow was pointing towards the police station. That makes sense. She loves seeing the police dogs.
Potentially, if this was just like a Far Cry game where you had to go all around the map and like secure locations for your own use, it might make more sense. I have no idea why those guys. I don't know why those guys are even attacking me. It'd be much smarter if there was a line of dialogue first before they attack you, which is the way they've done it in so many other LEGO games. There is a significant amount of stuff in this game that clearly was made by somebody who hadn't worked on previous LEGO games or was actively trying to do something different from the way it had been done.
What if the dog's got another clue? Seems to be pointing toward the chemical factory. That's strange. She never goes there.
Give me directions to amusement mile?
You can see the pathfinding of our character is a little wonky. Here we've got some more people that are going to attack you, but you could potentially just outrun them. There's also potentially an elephant in the room as far as Lego games, and that Warner Brothers and TT Games, since TT Games is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, now a subsidiary of AT&T, they could just lose the minifigs in a lot of their designs and straight up make a kids game that didn't have the Lego aspect to it. The problem with that is I imagine these games sell very easily with the Lego name, and so it's worth it to partner with Lego and not effectively betray that partnership. But if, as we are seeing more and more Lego games not made by TT Games of different styles, we may very well see them try and go their own way.
Are you okay? Let's go get some ice cream, my dear.
Yep. And when you have this like double licensed idea as far as games, in that you're licensing both Lego and you're licensing the Warner Brothers owned DC Comics and DC Universe, yeah, you create this situation where one Lego game is going to have a whole different set of characters compared to the next, where it wouldn't make a lot more sense if the TT Lego games had a single set of characters in every game. Although that would be about 12 to 15 games, it feels like, all in a very long running series, and it would get down to levels of like Assassin's Creed. We've unlocked a new ability.
My greatest inventings, creating gadgets, traps, guides, furniture, until it came to testing my creations. Due to some miscalculations, my inventions appear to recognize me as the enemy, and will fire in my direction as soon as they see me. Will you take care of them? Huh?
So we have another mission here, and I don't know who this character is. So that gives them an excuse to put some Lego googly eyes on furniture and do something a little weird.
I am done with house today.
And since we have demolition mode on, we can just walk into them.
No, vacuum cleaner, not you. That might have been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. They were among my greatest ever creations.
He sounds like a kid.
What am I talking about? I am the world's greatest inventor. I can create something twice just as easily. I don't need household furniture. See you later, buddy.
Who would leave this here, and why?
Batman's unlocking sound effect. Perhaps a little too long. So Gizmo. A frequent foe of the Teen Titans, Gizmo may be small in stature, but is a genius-level intellect, gives them the ability to build dangerous gadgets out of practically anything, using the vast array of tools at his disposal, and as part of the Fearsome 5, Gizmo always is inventing new ways to cause trouble. He showed up in New Teen Titans number 3, 1981. I believe New Teen Titans was a whole new cast of characters, for the most part, compared to the old Teen Titans. Yeah.
Is it not great?
Seems like we've got a thing. Oh, this is such a mess. Yeah. Mongol Not to be confused with dark slides, although that seems like that'd be pretty easy to do.
Recruit my personal arm is going remarkably slow. I've designed a computer that will brainwash to join my army. But hardly anyone has come to me. I think my game is good. It's spectacularly fun. Loads of dialogue and plenty of unlockables and Easter eggs.
That seems like that's a self-comment on this game.
I need to deliver my game directly to players. That'll convince them to join my new destructive army. Take these reviews and get it done quickly.
Okay. Video games.
The new Golden Fury? Sweet!
You hear somebody spray painting somewhere down here. This is like the one minifig that's always spray painting this wall, and it doesn't seem like they're actually spray painting anything. Yeah, that's not the guy. That's the guy.
I can't wait to play.
And it does definitely seem like we probably should just end the episode after this challenge. Notably, we're not going to get everything done. We've still got the side quests to do. We've still got Apocalypse to deal with. Yeah. I was totally wrong, come to think of it, when I said that we might be done today with the open world. That is absolutely no way. Because we haven't even done Apocalypse yet. On top of it being very possible that we do everything on Earth and then we activate something on Apocalypse and then it unlocks something new. Yeah, I don't even know what these Easter eggs and references are to, as far as the Golden Fury are. This is really hidden.
Finally! My mom wouldn't buy me a new game.
So now everybody is there? I don't think there is. Nope, this is everybody.
Right. The game works too well. They've become too engaged to tell anyone else about my game. Those were the only copies I had left.
Notice in the top right, the character screen is just popping in and out. I assume that's because the character is either dying over and over again or walking in and out of a certain radius.
I suppose you fulfilled your task. Take this. Get out of or I change my mind about letting you leave.
This is made of rare material. I shall put it to great use.
So let's look at Clarion. He must be like a Teen Titans character, I would suspect. Clarion studied the mystical arts in his home dimension, but left after using his knowledge of dark magic for evil. Since arriving on Earth with his beloved Teakle, Clarion, the Witch Boy's powers have only gotten stronger, meaning he's always prepared for more magical mischief. His first appearance was the Demon number 7 in 1974, and he's part of the Elite, which gives me no information whatsoever as far as who he's supposed to be a villain to. Mogul, one of Superman's most calculating foes, the alien tyrant known as Mogul, rules over the planet Warworld, often capturing warriors from across the galaxy and forcing them to fight in order to entertain his subjects. Manipulative and powerful, Mogul's plans are as brilliant as they are brutal. His first appearance was in DC Comics Presents number 27 in 1980. We also have Plastic Man that we've unlocked. After an accident at a chemical factory left him with incredible shape-shifting powers, the former small-time crook Patrick L. O'Brien decided to reform, both figuratively and literally. Now known as Plastic Man, this stretchy superhero's efforts to rebuild his reputation are shaping up nicely. He showed up in Police Comics number 1 in 1941, and I think that is kind of a great example of back in the 40s there would have been comics around detectives that were actually detectives and not like Batman or police or cowboys. Noticeably, Jonah Hex as a character not showing up anywhere here, and he would be the last like cowboy like character in the DC universe of any point, and so this might be Jonah Hex, but very possibly isn't. And so we have erase a character, erase. So we're gonna do a lot of races and then one more quest here. And so we'll probably just want to fly, do this race from Gotham to Belle Reve, and that might give me an excuse to try and find that last Belle Reve challenge. Then going back this way, let's see, what are the other races labeled as? Flying tour around Gotham is probably better. Weirdly, a gold brick seems like it just spawned there. That's weird. What is this? Just a daily planet? So yeah, we had this quest here, which may lead to more gold bricks and quests. We have some races and the quest here to do, and then we have challenges. And so poster painter would be, well, I pledge to give additional funding to the hardworking police force protecting the streets. I pledge to improve transport links to the city, refurbishing the old cable car station, and I will come down hard on graffiti, particularly in the passage beneath the ice cream factory. Okay, let's go do those challenges if we can find them, since we just read them. Otherwise, I very possibly will forget them. Okay. Iceberg Lounge is that way. That means police station is over here. So, somewhere around this police station, there is a poster for Harvey Dent that we're supposed to spray paint. We have Gotham City Police Department. We have a courthouse that's way too small. I wouldn't be surprised if they were given a very just specific list of locations that should be in Gotham City, and they followed the letter of the law there from DC, including a courthouse, while not really doing anything with it. Or at least in the example of Gotham City, or Arkham City, not Gotham City, you had, this is gonna be a tough drive. Notice how the circles are particularly small and low to the ground, so you couldn't fly through this. Although it doesn't seem like too much would stop you from switching over to the Flash or any other speedster and running. Very sharp braking, and very minimal inputs needed. I feel like I missed some here. Like, logically, they want you to use the Batmobile. I'm not sure I even see a Batmobile. We still have a few vehicles to unlock too. We have a Batcycle, Catwoman's bicycle, Bat glider, but weirdly, no Batmobile. So it seems like that's probably the last thing you would unlock. And even these Lego motorcycles feel small. So I can't even do this race if I wanted to, because I would need to figure out a way to respawn the vehicle, and it feels like there should just be a lever to respawn the vehicle. Which that would make a lot of sense in all the Lego games. Okay. The two remaining places to spray paint were under the ice cream factory, they said. Which maybe there's a way to get lower. Seems like there is. It's an easy place to miss. I hear somebody spray painting. There's another spray painter. It would almost make sense if the spray painters were spray painting these signs and then you just knocked them out of the way and showed them how it was done. Okay. And then the last one was I don't even remember. Let's just check the hint again. Old cable car section. Okay. So we'll look around. And we'll go check this cable car section. But it could also be a different cable car section. This is the biggest one also, so there's going to be a lot of room. A lot of room to have a spray paint somewhere. I imagine it would be somewhere close on this inside section. There it is. So that's the last one of that mischief. We haven't gotten anything on our cell phone in a while, even though we've accomplished all our goals. Yeah. It definitely feels like we should be getting more cell phone buzzes and prompts. So yeah, we have another race that seems like it's just popped up. Although maybe that's a race we've already done. Nope. That looks like that's just yet another thing that unlocks. It seems like it's a very linear list. You do one thing and then you unlock the next thing, and then you unlock the next thing, then you unlock the next thing. Yeah, there's a race here still to do. A race here. We're gonna just focus heavily on races and finishing up the last bit of Earth in the next episode, if we can pull that off, which I hope we can. We can go do bothersome bats, since we haven't done any of that. We can try and do runaway roundup and the last potent plants. I can find that one. Otherwise I really am gonna have to look at that. Some of these other things, I just probably want to do Apocalypse first and make sure I've got all the Apocalypse stuff. We missed the bow tie thing that we did find. As far as characters and file finders go, I assume the remaining one of these are also on Apocalypse. Same is true for Game Guru. I assume that that is on Apocalypse. And then the last statue is on Apocalypse as far as Golden Graffiti. So, yeah. There's not any more people that I can unlock as far as the game has gone, and by unlocking these characters in free play, I have not really changed my experience at all, because it still is just recommending the default 6 or 7 characters that you would expect it would recommend. It's not going crazy and recommending you try to play as Kanto, for instance, to solve some puzzles. Which definitely shows that there is a top tier A class of characters, and then there is all the rest. It's kind of obvious we have a bunch of races when we see that there are still several vehicles to unlock. But we are again making some decent amount of progress. We are at 233 of 270 characters unlocked, 147 out of 224 gold bricks. If anything, that really just highlights that a significant amount of gold bricks is still in the free play modes, And then we have 8 of 9 statues. We haven't actually gotten any of the graffitis done in this metric because the graffiti we have been doing just doesn't count towards that. We also are approaching 4.5 billion studs and have very, very little that we can do with that 4.5 billion. But in all fairness, subtract or divide the 4.5 billion I have now by 3,840, and you would see that I would be considerably less wealthy if I never purchased the gold brick multipliers or the stud multipliers, not the gold brick multipliers. There's no such thing as that. But yeah, even if I hadn't gotten the 10 times and was just getting a multiplication of 384 times, I would only be at 400 million studs. But if you play any of the multipliers ever, if you ever get them in a reasonable amount of time, you will have more than enough studs to purchase everything. And in most cases, even if you never played with the studs multipliers, you probably have enough studs anyways. It might be a little bit more difficult, or you might have to grind a little bit at the end of the game and then use the stud multipliers at that point. Anyways, I don't want to ramble on. This is already going long, so that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. There's a bunch of social media and support links down below in the description box also. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.